Nestled on the border of Maine and New Hampshire is the historic Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, where vessels have been built for over 2 centuries. The city, like the yard, has undergone considerable change over the years, through the good times and the bad. In the summer of 1981, Deborah Smarrella, fresh out of high school, is enjoying life and contemplating her future.
Deborah's parents are both in the Navy. Her mom remarries. Life seemed full of potential for Deborah. She had everything to look forward to.
She, to me, didn't really have a future in mind. She was just gonna let life take its path.
Stephen Brown, an ex-Marine working as a guard down at the shipyard, roars into her life.
Anybody want to go for a ride?
Deborah likes the bad boy type. And when she runs into Stephen, boy, she finds her knight in shining armor.
I love motorcycles.
Motorcycle guy, tattoos, tough looking.
What's your name?
Deborah.
She told me she fell in love the day she met him. She thought he was the greatest thing in the world.
It's nice to meet you, Steve.
She felt that he was the one that she could spend the rest of her life with.
The two quickly become inseparable. Within months, they head to Corpus Christi, Texas, and move in with Deb's mother. But Deborah's stepfather soon becomes suspicious of her new boyfriend.
Stephen didn't just leave the Marines, he was kicked out.
Deborah's stepfather begins to do some investigating himself. And he finds out that Brown, right, is a troublemaker.
That's not true. Stephen!
Kicked out of high school. He joins the Marines at 18 and is assigned to infantry right away. But he gets kicked out for fighting.
A psychological evaluation finds that under stress, he can show aggressive and bizarre behavior.
He walks around with a swagger and a sense of bravado. Anything that really triggers feelings of insecurity in terms of his masculinity.
What's wrong?
He becomes aggressive, he becomes angry, and physically, he acts out to destroy the threat.
What's the matter?
Can we get out of here?
Of course we can.
Deborah refuses to believe her boyfriend has a dark side.
She didn't want to hear it.
Character and behavior disorders.
It's typical kid.
He's unstable, Deborah.
Don't want to listen to your parents.
Deborah and Stephen quickly wear out their welcome and hit the road. 6 months after meeting, they're married in a civil ceremony.
Here you are, darling.
Thank you.
For Deborah and Stephen, it's a double celebration. Because in 5 months, there will be a new addition to their family. But the honeymoon is soon over.
Hey, honey. How are you? How was work?
What is this?
Wait, it'll be done in just a minute.
They haven't been married a week.
It'll be ready in just a
She's
minute.
carrying a child, and suddenly, out of nowhere, this vicious psycho emerges.
You know what time I get home from work? Every day! Are you stupid? Huh? Why is it not ready? You know what time I get home from work. I got home.
That's just how controlling he was. Everything had a set schedule.
Why is my dinner not ready? Why is it not ready? Why is my dinner not ready? Huh?
That's how it worked. It was Steve's way or no way.
Same time, every day!
Once he and Deborah get married, he now has, in his mind, complete control over her. She's his. So when he's feeling stressors from every other aspect of his life, it's easy to vent on the one closest to you.
Is this good, Deb? Huh? Does this taste good to you? You like the meat? Is that good? You want meat, wifey? I won't choke on it. How about this, Deb? Is that good in your mouth? Huh? Is that good? Huh, Deb? Is that good? Here you go, Deb. Here's the entree.
He says things like, I'm sorry, it'll never happen again. I was angry, it was the alcohol, I had a bad day. There's all sorts of excuses and apologies.
Deborah, still blinded by love, believes her husband's promise that he won't behave this way again. But after the birth of their son, Stephen Jr., the beatings get worse. The young family bounces around Florida, Virginia, and Maine before finally settling in Newfield, New York, where Stephen manages to keep his temper under control.
Life was very good for them in Newfield. He went to work for his dad. His dad paid him very well.
With a stable job and his parents close by, Stephen seems like a changed man.
Deborah gets pregnant again.
Stephen Jr. now has a sister, Whitney.
Things seem to be going well. Brown even says, I'm going to get help for my anger issues. But does he? Absolutely not.
Stephen's dark side reemerges. Deborah once more becomes a battered wife. For 16 painful years, she endures his brutality, and the children adjust to living in fear.
He would go off the deep end. He would get very upset and he would scream. He would hit her for whatever reason.
You make me do this.
If I didn't clean the dishes up to his standards, he would get very upset. He could break dishes. I have been smacked across the face with a frying pan. If I didn't clean my room, he would break stuff, and he would whip me with a belt.
What is your problem? The house is filthy. My dinner's not ready.
Brown's attacks on Stephen Jr. are even more savage.
It was a lot harder on Stephen than he was on me. He would hit him in the face, and he would kick him, and he would throw him around. And it was very, very scary to see him like that.
What is the kid left to do, right? Again, this is control. Brown is controlling every movement, every single thing that each family member does, they do in fear.
You never knew what you were going to come home to. He could be sitting there waiting with that look, just calm as can be, with eyes blacker than night, knowing that you did something wrong and you were going to pay for it.
Stephen's parents announce they are retiring to Florida. It's a double blow, as he also loses the well-paid job his father gave him.
Anytime there are increases in stressors with Stephen Brown, Deborah Brown is likely to be the individual that suffers the consequences for it.
The beatings become more frequent and even more severe.
Stephen, please, stop.
Your fault.
No, I don't.
You make me do this. I don't care. Good.
Finally, Deborah decides she's not going to suffer anymore and finds the courage to leave.
She came up to me and said, "This isn't the life we're supposed to be living. We need to get out of here. It's not safe for us anymore."
She takes the children to a domestic violence center and hires a lawyer to seek a protective order against her husband.
Almost immediately, I think I realized it was one of the most extreme cases I had ever handled. She had obviously been the victim of extreme domestic violence and abuse over many years.
Brown finds out where she's staying and, with help from his parents, persuades her to return home.
Is this really going to be different, Stephen?
Of course it's gonna be
He promises Deborah that he will become a loving husband once more.
It's never gonna be like that again. All right? I love you.
Men like Stephen Brown really don't change. And I told her that I couldn't imagine that things really were going to be better.
For a couple weeks, everything's fine. One big happy family. But what always happens is that anger resurfaces, and this is all escalating.
He held her at gunpoint and told her that she wasn't going to leave because if he couldn't have her, nobody could.
You know I love you.
After enduring 16 years of physical and emotional abuse at the hands of her violent and unpredictable husband,
You make me do this.
Deborah Brown reaches her breaking point.
So she's living basically in a catch-22 situation. A damned if I do, damned if I don't. He threatens to kill her if she leaves, but if she stays, ultimately, she believes he's gonna beat her to death. So what is she to do?
Don, it's me. He's gone. We're ready. Come get us.
Deborah calls her father and brother, who agree to drive down from Maine to rescue her.
She has an escape plan this time. She goes off to work. He thinks the kids go off to school. And her brother's waiting for them. They can grab all their things as soon as Brown leaves. They can grab everything and hightail it out of there.
She was in constant fear. She tried her best to prevent us from knowing, but she always did look over her shoulder.
Deborah's brother, Don, invites her to stay temporarily at his home in Lebanon, Maine. Also staying at the home are Don's girlfriend and his best friend, Chris Brouillard.
Chris and Deb strike up a relationship. He's honest with her. He treats her well. And she realizes, hey, I can have a healthy relationship. There's actually a nice guy out there for me.
As weeks pass, Deborah begins to relax as normal life resumes.
Being with her family in Maine, I think, gave her the structure and family support that she needed to really make the break.
She decides to file for divorce and sole custody of her children.
You don't think you deserve this?
But Stephen refuses to let go.
He called me every day, pleading with me to talk to my sister to get her to come back. And I pretty much told him it's her choice, it's her life.
Deborah and the children return to New York for a custody hearing. No one is looking forward to seeing Stephen there.
I was scared because I didn't want to go back to him, and I was afraid that we would. He had a way of convincing people to get what he wanted.
Stephen denies Deborah's claims of abuse, telling the judge that she is mentally unstable.
He was a very good witness for himself. He was cool, calm, and collected. It was very hard to see how the person on the stand and the person that you were hearing about from Deborah Brown could be one and the same person.
Stephen's friends and family testify on his behalf. But the most compelling evidence comes from the couple's children.
I told him that I didn't feel safe living with my dad. I didn't like to be hit every day. I didn't like to be in constant fear. I didn't want any part of it. I just wanted to move on with my life. I wanted to be a kid, have a normal childhood.
The son tells the judge, if you make us go live with my dad, I'll take my sister and we'll flee to Canada. There's no way they will live with that guy because they know what he's capable of.
Furious at being publicly humiliated, Stephen returns home and seeks comfort in heavy drinking and the arms of a longtime friend who's retained a crush on him.
We'll be okay.
At first, Patty Teeter is just a shoulder to cry on,
We'll be okay.
a good friend.
We'll be fine.
But Patty wants friend with benefits. Her goal is to get him in bed. She wants him sexually.
Promise it'll be okay.
But that's really his bait. He's holding it back.
After the break, quick check of weather and traffic.
Hey. Patricia Teeter is a single mother who ironically also escaped a violent relationship. She works at a local radio station.
She would talk about Steve, how wonderful he was, and how she would go to his house.
I'm here for you.
And he would talk about how he missed his children.
Here.
She would fantasize about living there and being part of his life.
Stephen Brown homes in on her vulnerability.
Teeter has victim written on her forehead, and Brown sees this from afar because she's been married to a man who's what? Been physically and emotionally abusing her for what? A decade. And Brown picks up on this right away, and he knows what? He can control her.
Stop.
She is the perfect individual for Stephen Brown at this particular time because she makes him feel very good about himself. She dotes on him. Even though they're not having a romantic relationship, she's acting as if they are.
Deborah learns that the court has granted her full custody of the children and child support. Stephen is ordered to stay away from his wife and kids.
We were all very happy. It was just a celebration that that part of our life was finally behind us and we were moving forward.
But Stephen Brown has no intention of staying away and wants revenge.
And it's a blow to his ego that he really cannot defend against in any other way than with pure rage.
With his naive companion by his side, Brown decides to drive to Maine and aims to talk Deborah into returning home. But if that doesn't work, he has a far more disturbing alternative plan. Stephen Brown is coming for his wife and kids and has made his mind up that nothing will stand in his way to get what he wants and unleash his revenge. After losing his children in a custody battle, Stephen Brown decides to go to Maine to track down his wife. He lies to longtime admirer Patricia Teeter, convincing her that their trip is purely for pleasure. He tells her the rifle and shotgun are for hunting rabbits.
This was Brown's reward to her, being such a close, good confidant, a friend, a shoulder to cry on. Patty, on the other hand, is looking at it as a romantic getaway.
Brown has secretly hatched and recorded a sinister plot, one Teeter will only discover as it unfolds.
I just couldn't tell you the whole truth about what I was getting ready to do because I knew you wouldn't be a part of it. It's ending.
What is really clear in the suicide tape is that Stephen Brown has now reached the point where he is feeling completely victimized. And he is blaming Deborah for how things have ended up as they have.
Once on the road, Brown reveals to Teeter the real motive for their trip, to talk to his ex-wife.
He is on his way to see his wife. He's guns and knives and tape and rope. Most of us would look at that and say, something's not right. What it shows is that she's willing to do what is necessary to ultimately end up where she wants to be, and that's with Stephen Brown.
Brown's plan is to get everyone else out of the house. So Deb's alone, and he can sneak around and get in there and talk to her.
That afternoon, they track down Deborah's brother's house.
All right, guys, let's go inside. Get warmed up.
Brown and Teeter conduct covert surveillance.
Do you see them?
So what is Brown doing at this point? He's stalking Deb. He's stalking the house.
Where are you?
Part of the thrill for the sociopath is in executing the plan. So he's getting a thrill, a charge out of executing this plan.
That night, Stephen Jr. is staying with an uncle. Deborah, Whitney, and the others watch a movie together before heading to bed.
It's 11:45 at night. Everyone in the house is thinking, who the hell is knocking on the door? at this hour.
Could you come help us? Our car broke down.
My Uncle Woody went out to help her.
Okay, sure.
He was good with cars. He was always trying to help people.
Here's the car. I don't know what's wrong with it.
Let's start up, see what's going on.
Patricia Teeter turns her back on the violence.
The ultimate choice she makes is to deny reality and choose the fantasy. He's knocking him out, he will be all right, and Stephen Brown and I will live happily ever after.
For Brown, anger takes over because really, if he wanted to, all he had to do was drag Woody into the woods, tie him to a tree, go in the house, talk to Deborah. But what does he do? He kills Woody.
Don says he needs Chris's help with the car. Could you go get him, sweetie?
Okay.
I went to wake up my mom and Chris. He just got his coat on, his boots and everything, and he went out the door.
Where's Don?
I have a gun.
Hey, look at that gun!
There's no mistaking the fact that there's a difference in the stab wounds to Donnie Wood and Chris Brouillard. Chris Brouillard is seeing his ex-wife. There's a romantic relationship there. Those stab wounds are clearly indicative of anger at Chris Brouillard.
Teeter went back to that house 3 times. Shows how desperate she was for love.
All right, what's going on?
And my mom, she knew something wasn't right. She said, I'm gonna go.
As soon as she sees his face, she knows, wait a minute here. Something bad, something evil is going on with this.
Deborah tries to escape, but decides she can't abandon her family and new boyfriend, so bravely heads back into harm's way.
Deborah's out of options. She realizes that her daughter's back at the house, the people she loves are back at the house, and she has to go back there right now.
The night of terror is only just beginning. Get more Wicked Attraction online. Despite being afraid for her life, Deborah Brown is compelled to drive back into harm's way to rescue her daughter Whitney from her crazed husband and his love-struck accomplice, Patricia Teeter. Deborah also fears for her boyfriend, Chris Brouillard, and brother Don Wood, who were lured outside.
Stephen, don't! Whitney, call the police!
She started screaming, he's here. And I knew it was my dad automatically. She was just screaming and honking her horn. I panicked. I didn't know what to do.
Whitney, call the police!
Deb is scared to death. She knows how violent he can be.
Hey, Deborah.
She sees that look in Brown's eye and she knows that this is for real this time.
Deb asks about her brother and boyfriend, Chris.
And Brown says, they're fine, don't worry about it. I just have them tied up. They're behind the garage. Deb doesn't know whether to believe him or not, but really, what choice does she have at this point?
I felt completely alone. I didn't know what to do. That's when it clicked to me that this was real, this was happening. We need to do something.
Donald Wood's girlfriend makes an urgent call for help.
Please try to rescue you. Yes, ma'am. Okay, hold on. Take a deep breath. Get down, please. Get the cops here on 61 Lower Middle Road immediately. Stephen Brown is here. All right, take a deep breath. We have people on the way, okay? My boyfriend, he's been gone almost an hour. He went to help this woman, and this woman's been in and out of my house.
Police arrive with search dogs.
We did a search of the area and we found the two subjects who had left the residence to help the motorist. We found them about 30 feet back into the woods. They were deceased.
They're formally identified as the bodies of Don Wood and Chris Brouillard. In a parking lot nearby, police find Deborah's car abandoned.
It had a window that had been smashed out of it. There was glass all inside of it, and nobody was around. So at that point, we knew there was another vehicle involved, and we assumed that Deb, as well as Stephen Brown, had transferred into that other vehicle and had left the area.
The killers, with their hostage, are now in Teeter's Oldsmobile, heading towards New York.
Every time they approach a toll booth, Brown tells her, get down, cover yourself with a blanket, all right? And if the cops do happen to stop us somewhere along the way, there's gonna be a bloodbath.
Brown and Teeter drive non-stop for the next 5 hours. As daybreak approaches, they arrive at a motel in East Greenbush, outside of Albany. Brown sends Teeter to the reception desk.
He tells Teeter, rent 2 adjoining rooms. One for you, one for me and Deborah. So they're holed up in this hotel room all day long, Brown and Deborah. And he assaults her 3 different times sexually. And he even threatens to shoot her. Not so she'll die, but so she'll never walk again. Again, he's exhibiting that control. I have control over you. I have the power. I am your God.
You're dead! Patricia Teeter at this point is past the point of no return. She is bought into this fantasy she is wanting to live out. She's bought into it, and she has to continue. I'm not sure how this is going to resolve itself at the motel, but it will, and we will end up going home, and things will be as I want them to be.
That day, autopsies are performed on Don Wood and Chris Brouillard. The medical examiner determines that Wood was killed as the result of blunt force trauma to the head.
He also had 2 significant stab wounds, but what part they actually played in taking his life, we will never know, because the blunt force trauma to his head would have been enough to kill him.
Chris Brouillard has extensive fractures to his skull. He's also been stabbed 3 times, once in the neck and twice in the chest.
Chris's injuries were so extensive, so violent, that the ME could not determine which of them was fatal. Those types of injuries, they really show that for Brown, this is the price you pay when you play in my world.
New York and Maine State Police are searching for Newfield, New York residents Stephen Brown and Patricia Teeter. They're wanted for questioning in a double homicide in Lebanon, Maine.
17 hours after leaving the murder scene, Patricia Teeter learns from a friend that the police are onto them.
And the friend says, have you seen the news? There are 2 people dead, and the police are looking for your boyfriend. Where are you? What the hell's going on?
The friend contacts police, revealing Patricia let slip where the killers are hiding out.
She was in a hotel and could actually see the city of Albany. It was our general consensus that Deb Brown was still alive. We still had time.
Police immediately put out an alert to find Teeter's black Oldsmobile.
Stephen, they know the cops are coming.
Go to the room.
So Brown knows the police are looking for him, all right? And he knows that this is not going to end peacefully. He promised a bloodbath to Deborah, and he's going to deliver on that.
East Greenbush police officer Elaine Rudzinski checks the parking lot of the motel.
When I got down here, I see that there's a black Oldsmobile Chiva backed tightly in front of a couple of the motel rooms. That does fit the description.
Rudzinski notices temporary Pennsylvania tags.
We obtained the Pennsylvania tag, and upon running it, it came back that it wasn't on file. So that kind of was a little bit more evidence that something wasn't right with the vehicle.
She then asks the clerk to check the registration for the rooms along that wall.
We noticed that Patricia Teeter had, in fact, registered 2 rooms in her name. At that point, everything starts rolling fast. The emergency response team was deployed.
I'll take the first door, you take the second.
2 SWAT teams are prepping, 1 for each room.
Let's do it. Go.
We don't have any illusion that Stephen Brown is going to end this peacefully. The 2 gentlemen that we had found in the woods proves that.
The clock is ticking. Stephen Brown is cornered, and his estranged wife, Deborah, fears she's just minutes away from an early grave. SWAT teams prepare to storm a motel outside Albany, New York, where murder suspects Stephen Brown and Patricia Teeter are holding Brown's estranged wife, Deborah, hostage.
There was debate whether to go in immediately or to wait until daytime, but being the fact that there was a victim in there / hostage, it was decided that we needed to go in as soon as possible. They went in simultaneously, and everybody gets taken into custody until we can sort out who actually is the suspect and who actually are the victims. The raid was a huge success. Stephen Brown and Patricia Teeter were taken into custody with minor incident. Deborah Brown went home safe.
Now, 12 years later, Deborah talks on camera for the first time.
The whole time he had me captured, I really did not think I was coming home. But unless it was in a body bag, I thought my life ended there.
But there is one last shock for Deborah.
I had asked at that point where Chris and Woody were, and they said, well, we have to tell you something. I said, well, they're behind the garage. You found them, right? And they said, no, they're dead. I remember looking at them, kind of quiet, just in a shock.
And it's the final insult to a marriage filled with abuse.
Deborah boards a plane back to Maine and her children.
There was something different about her.
Mommy?
I can't really describe it. It wasn't that happy moment that I had been anticipating, where I just wanted to run up and hug her and everything would be fine, because it wasn't fine.
Deborah remains haunted by the horror of that long, terrifying night.
And I just think that I'm just very lucky to be here, because most women wouldn't have survived, I don't think.
Thinking back to their first encounter, she wonders how things went so terribly wrong.
When I first met him, he was charming, caring, loving, supportive, everything that you really wanted in a guy, just fun to be around. In the end, he was your worst nightmare. He was a monster from hell. The devil just possessed him. I'll never forget the terror that he put me through.
You make me do this!
He had always told me that he would wipe out my entire family. And I never believed him till that night that I saw him in the woods. Then I knew he meant what he said. I was actually petrified. I was shaking. I could feel myself shaking in the driver's seat. Your life flashes before your eyes. I thought I was dead, and I didn't know what was going to happen with my children. That hotel room, I didn't ever think I was coming out. He told me that I would have been in a wheelchair for the rest of my life because he was going to make sure I had enough bullets in me that I would never walk again. I felt very helpless. Nobody's going to come rescue me. There's no help on their way.
For Deborah, the most difficult part of the ordeal is the loss of her brother.
My brother was like a dad to me instead of a brother, you know. He would have rescued me in Alaska. He was my best friend. And now he's not here to talk to no more. Pick you up when you need cheering up.
Stephen Brown and Patricia Teeter give statements to police admitting their involvement in the crime.
Tell me why you brought all this hunting stuff. Why? Rope, duct tape.
Because,
tell me why.
Because I had in my mind, one way or another, I was going to talk to them.
He reveals that Patricia Teeter knew he was going to violently attack the men.
I said, when they come out, believe me, I said, I'm going to hit them hard enough, tackle them, knock them down. I'm going to pull them aside, duct tape their mouth, tie their hands or feet up. And I said, eventually when they get a couple of them out there, I'll feel a lot more secure and there won't be as many people in the house. Hey. I'm freaking out. It was almost like my body was outside, my body looking in. I don't know what to tell you, but it was the weirdest feeling I've ever had in my whole life. I mean, I was shaking like belief. And I reached down in my pad, and I pulled out a knife. I remember swinging that knife.
And I think, in many respects, he was proud of himself for what he had done.
I couldn't believe what had happened. I couldn't believe that everything had fallen apart and had escalated to this point.
He readily confessed to these crimes, almost in a way that he wanted to tell me. He wanted to get this off his chest.
So whatever was done was done. I own up to that.
Patricia Teeter, nursing a black eye after the police stormed through her door, reveals her feelings towards Brown.
I just wanted to try to help him, to get a little closure so he could see the kids. And that's all I was trying to do. I was trying to be his friend.
She also claims she didn't know Brown was planning to kill anyone.
Well, I just figured, like I said, he was going to knock him down and tie him up and then just put him into the woods or, off to the side so he could talk to Deb and maybe even see the kids. I mean, I knew he was taking quite a chance.
You didn't think anyone was going to get hurt?
Well, maybe knocked out and stuff, but I didn't know it was going to be the extent.
So it was all right to knock people out, but you draw the line at killing them.
I just went up to the door. And then Steve came out and hit him on the head.
No, after he banged that first man over the head, how could you go back up to that house and bring that other man out, knowing that he was going to get it? You killed him by not doing anything. You knew he was going to get that second man, didn't you?
But I didn't know he was going to kill him.
She does go back to the house 3 times. So that tells us that she knew what Brown was doing, and she fully participated in this violence. She was the bait. She was the bait for the monster.
I didn't help other than bringing the gentleman out.
Luring them to their deaths.
Well, I didn't know I was doing that.
Yes, you did.
He has violent tendencies, and she does anything he wants without a blink of an eye.
Teeter pleads guilty to 2 counts of felony murder, plus 1 count of kidnapping. While her attorney argues for a reduced sentence, the prosecution pushes for the maximum.
In my opinion, Patty Teeter cannot be absolved of any guilt because she participated in every step along the way. So in my opinion, she's guilty, just as guilty.
Patricia Teeter is sentenced to 20 years on the state charges, with another 29 years added for the federal charges. She'll be eligible for release in 2023. While in jail awaiting trial, Stephen Brown tries to hang himself and later slits his own throat, but survives.
Stephen, do you have anything to say about this at all?
On August 5th, 1999, he pleads guilty in Maine State Court to 2 counts of intentional murder and is sentenced to life in prison.
You almost get the sense that he felt very empowered by what he did, that he was able to affect a situation. He had a plan and he carried it out. And I think in many respects, he was proud of himself for what he had done.
4 months later, he's convicted in federal court of kidnapping, interstate domestic violence, and other charges, and is sentenced to 5 concurrent life sentences.
Every day that I lived with him, I thought it was going to be my last day with him. There was never a safe day there. Never. And now I can say I'm safe. I'm safe.
Neither of Brown's children have any communication with him.
I don't even know what state he's in. And I don't have any plans on ever meeting with him, talking with him. What he put us through was enough. He doesn't deserve my time.
Today, Deborah Brown works with federal agents and speaks to women's groups about domestic violence.
My advice to women is get out and never look back.
And Stephen Brown is a time bomb waiting to happen. He likes to think of himself in his sort of hyper-masculine image. And Patricia Teeter does that for him. And ultimately, it turns out to be a deadly combination.